Hey guys, I'm Bless B Dun, Bundy, back with another video. And I'm going to explain why Lillie is not a good card, and why it's also bad, and not to mention subpar. And I'm going to do so while I eat top ramen with chili flakes, Cholula sauce, carrots, and salt mixed in because, you know. Anyway. And I'm also eating fried rice with tofu, onions, and applesauce. So, reason number one why Lillie is bad. Actually, maybe I should go as far as to say the worst supporter to come out of Sun and Moon. Reason number one is other supporters overshadow it by a lot. It's not even like a, oh, well, this supporter's a little bit better, so don't play Lillie. It's like a lot better, and that's why you shouldn't play Lillie. N is an amazing setup card in the early game, and Professor Sycamore is an amazing setup card in the early game. Not to mention that N has versatility late game, and even mid game, and has amazing combos with it. While Professor Sycamore not only thins cards, but draws you more cards than any card in the game, other than if you Lillie with 0 cards in your hand on the first turn, which is just incredibly unlikely. So, that's the first reason, right? You have Sycamore and N are just better, right? If you were going to play another supporter, you would just play more N usually, because most people don't play the full 4 N right now. They're playing like 3 or 2 usually in most decks. Now you might have the argument that N shuffles your opponent's hand back in your deck and you don't like that. That's why you like Lillie. It draws you cards without you shuffling back in, and it also doesn't force you to discard cards. Well, my argument there is that there are already cards out there that do that more effectively. So for example, Professor Kukui draws you 2 cards and ups your damage output. So in most situations, you can just use Kukui instead, and it'll do a little bit worse than the same thing as Lillie would do, because I'm assuming that you're not going to use Lillie turn 1 very often. Usually if you do play supporter turn 1, it's going to be Sycamore or N, so you're not really going to be in a position where you're like, oh, I can't discard this stuff, it's too bad, or I can't end my opponent. Most of the time on your first turn that doesn't come up very much. There are situations where that does happen, but I would argue that in those situations, usually you have a lot of resources in your hand that you don't want to discard, so even if you were to play Lillie, you wouldn't get very many cards because you have so many other cards in your hand clogging it up. And then if you don't want to end your opponent, well, the thing is, just do it anyway. If your board is advantaged in a situation, and your opponent is dead drawing, you can just keep your lead up by playing that N and continuing your lead. Like, people have this idea that they need to sustain their opponent dead drawing. Let me just make sure this is still recording. So you really don't need to worry too much about that. That's just like an in general rule. If you're in the lead and not drawing cards might push you into not being in the lead, just play the N. I also just want to mention that there are so many other good supporters that fit that niche spot that Lillie would take, like Professor Kukui, Teammates, and Ace Trainer. Those are the main 3 ones that I'm thinking right now. Those are all cards that are going to give you the added draw that you're looking for. Teammates is actually better. Teammates is an amazing card, very underrated right now, in my opinion. I think it's really good, but there are just other stuff that are better. Kukui has more versatility because it can up your damage ceiling. Lillie does not up your damage ceiling, it just provides a Bianca for every turn besides the first turn. And yeah, Bianca was pretty good, right? Nope, not right. Bianca was bad. It was really bad. Really bad, in fact. Which brings me to my next point. Bianca was bad. We can just look to cards that already existed. Bianca was not good once VS Seeker came out. Nobody was playing Bianca. I think they even reprinted a card that was like the same as Bianca or something like that. But I don't even remember it because I'm not even sure if it was in anything or if Bianca just got a reprint. Basically, Bianca is not good in anything at all. Period. You're better off playing Skyla than that kind of goes with my first point actually. You're better off just playing Skyla than Lillie. You can Skyla for what you need or whatever, Skyla for the supporter you want. Just Skyla for something. It's better. Skyla's a really underrated card right now. I played 2 in my Ray list. It's very good in certain decks. But yeah, and then, so, basically you can just look to the past and see cards that are like Lillie and realize that it wasn't amazing before when we had VS Seeker around. And it probably will not be amazing now because we do have VS Seeker around, as well as Shaman. Like, Bianca was bad when we had VS Seeker and no Shaman. Now we do have Shaman. It's like, come on, man. I don't know why anybody thinks this is good. My next point is that I actually got this from PTCG Radio. He said Bianca is a card that you want to run 1 copy of and 4 copies of it. You can't. It's not really good in any other way. Like, you want 4 copies so that you start with it in your opening hand because it's good in your opening hand, right? But you also only want to play 1 copy because it's not really good at any other time other than in your opening hand. It's a really inconsistent card. You're going to get good use out of it occasionally if you run 1 copy on your first turn, and then you're going to get a lot of really bad use out of it by playing 4 or 3 because you're going to get it a lot on your first turn. It's going to be good, and then throughout the rest of the game you're going to be wishing those spots were something else, and you're probably just going to be using Sycamore or Ren a lot of the time. So overall, the card just is inconsistent and does not work well in pretty much any deck. Yeah, not super strong.